Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. Today, we're talking about our friends, the hummingbirds. They are everywhere right now at bird feeders. It's the very, very end of August now. And in Kansas City region, it is peak for us. This is, boy, we've got all the babies, all the adults. Migrants are coming down. And then depending on where you are, your situation, my guess is you probably still have quite a few hummingbirds no matter where you are. But this is the time of year we get those questions as to, should I take my hummingbird feeder down? Or if I leave it up, will it make them stay here and they'll freeze to death and all that? So, again, this program is about why you shouldn't take your hummingbird feeder down too quickly. And there are several reasons, and we're going to cover them. And it's your benefit and the benefit of the birds. But let me preface this right off the bat to say, if you're going to get tired of changing your hummingbird nectar, if you're kind of just out of it, I've been doing it all summer and now it's ready to go ahead and take it down. Because if I'd rather you take your hummingbird feeder down than to leave it up and let the nectar go bad and it'd be bad for the hummingbirds. So that's rule number one. But why should you leave your hummingbird feeder up longer than maybe your instincts tell you to? Like I say, when I moved here in 92, I remember the saying was, oh, after September 15th, take your hummingbird feeder down. You have to take your hummingbird feeder down. No, couldn't be further from the truth. Hummingbirds know when to migrate. They migrate off of instincts. They migrate off of the change in day length that triggers them, also by temperature a little bit, and also by winds. When the winds start shifting out of the north and we get those cooler winds, usually in September, late September, October, they have fattened up, which they're doing right now at your feeders, are eating like crazy, and they know it's time to leave. So when it comes to leaving your hummingbird feeder up, to me, number one, the rule is your enjoyment. You get to enjoy them as long as possible before they do head down to central Mexico, Central America. They're going to go and spend the winter down there where they can get nectar and they can get insects all during the winter months before coming up. So enjoy them as long as you can because it's fun. I mean, hummingbirds are one of the most popular birds on the planet, and especially out through our area. And I know there are a lot more species out on the West Coast. We only get the ruby throated. This is a female ruby throated, but out west you get the rufous hummingbirds, and you get to keep them for a while longer because they're kind of high elevation birds, so they're kind of hardier for cold temperatures. And so when they're moving, and they're coming through. So enjoy them as long as you can. But why else should you leave your hummingbird feeder? What's in it for the birds? Well, for the most part, they're this time of year they're feeding on natural flowers. Well, those natural flowers are going to die back, and they're going to start losing that nectar, and they're going to start losing that natural food source. And I know that depending upon where you are, some of you, this has happened earlier because in really dry areas, drought conditions this year, that maybe their flowers are already dwindling and the hummingbirds are moving out. But in areas where there's lots of flowers, they're going to stay a little bit longer anyways because the food sources are there for them to be able to fatten up. But once those natural food sources start to deplete, and they have to get out of here, then hummingbird feeders can be the difference in them for making it or not making it. Especially younger birds. Juvenile birds are the last to leave. Right? We talk about the adult males leaving first and adult females. But those young birds, again, this is their first year. They don't know what to do, and finally their instincts will tell them to leave. But they tend to linger a little bit longer. As I said, when it used to be any hummingbird after September 15th in the Kansas City region was pretty rare. Now we get reports up through the middle of October fairly regularly. They stay later, staying later and later, and because part of that is the milder temperatures and the natural flowers are doing really well. Hummingbird feeders help them because you get a good cold snap in here, and all of a sudden they're here without a lot of natural food. Hummingbird feeders can make a huge difference. So you can help those, especially those younger birds. But also there are, you've heard me talk about migration. There's always early birds and there's always late birds. And late birds in the hummingbird world, they come through a little bit later. Then they, may be in desperate need of a food source because they have lingered too long for whatever reason, and a hummingbird feeder hung up during really cold snaps or that will help them survive, and then maybe give them a chance to migrate a little bit later. I know a few years ago we had this guy in the Kansas City region, a male rufous hummingbird who came through, which is kind of rare here, but he stuck around until Thanksgiving Day. That's when that bird finally moved on. He was at the bird feeder here in the Kansas City region for a couple 3 months, and it's, which is really unusual. But he finally on Thanksgiving, it was really cold, he migrated out. So you can really help some birds hang on longer than normal. And if it really gets later in the season, if you're willing to keep your hummingbird nectar fresh and keep changing it, one year we had an anise hummingbird, which is really uncommon here in the Midwest. It was at a hummingbird feeder here in central Missouri in December, and the homeowner had to have a heat lamp shining on the hummingbird feeder so that the sugar water wouldn't freeze. And the bird came and visited for a couple of good weeks before it moved on. So your chances of helping a hummingbird are greater by leaving it up if you're diligent and you're willing to change it. But also, again, the reward, seeing something rare in Missouri like an anise hummingbird, but also people don't think about birds like this Lucistic ruby-throated hummingbird. Now, let me blow that up a little bit bigger for you. See how light that bird is? It's very, very pale. It's got a dark eye and a dark bill, so definitely not an albino. But young birds, whenever these young genetic misfits like Lucistic hummingbirds and also fully albino hummingbirds, this one showed up here several years ago now in the Kansas City region, well, they're not going to live very long. They're, unfortunately, most of these birds that stand out like that are easy predators, prey for predators, and so your best chance of actually seeing them is that first fall after their birth. So having your feeders up, you can get to see these young birds come in, and your chances of seeing something really unusual like an albino or like a Lucistic hummingbird coming in are greater. And if you leave it up, you increase your chances of possibly seeing something like that. So you get a ton of enjoyment yourself. So bird feeding is good for us. It's good for our mental health, and of course, helping those hummingbirds along on their journey is really important. Helping them to survive, because it is it's dangerous world out there, and they've got to make it all the way down to Central America to spend the winter. So, by the way, somebody mentioned I haven't been asking people to subscribe enough. So here's my little plug in here. But if you like these videos, remember, I'm on it a couple of times a week, and we really do post hopefully a lot of good information for you, and you find them useful. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And I always ask you if you'll send in ideas for future programs. I'd love to do that. And I'm on live every other Thursday night, so check the schedule and see when I'm on next. Thank you again. It's a great idea for a program. Hummingbirds are always topic. Thank you for tuning in. And next time, come on, let's talk birds.